Yo, what's up? What's going on, Outliers? Today's a little bit different because I am actually streaming to two different spots. So that's why I did a little bit of test ahead of time to see if it was working. I think it is. If things get weird, let me know. But I'm going to try streaming when I do these, not just to YouTube, but also to Twitch to see if there's any people interested in options trading on that side of the world. So that's the game plan. So it looks like we got Reese, Zach, Lauren, Joe. Great to see everybody. And the agenda for today, as always, especially for these, the Trader Hangouts, is it's completely open. We can talk about literally whatever we feel like, whatever pops up to us. We'll probably turn this off because normally I try to leave this on for some sort of news in the background. That's normally pretty cool. But this is sports, which I have to be honest, I couldn't care less about, unfortunately. So I think we can just knock this dude off. It looks like Wheel Stretcher says no volume. That is by design. The design is just because when I roll this for you guys is like a pre-roll to give you something to look at before we actually kick off. If I don't do that, then I run the risk of being copyright struck, which I have learned they pull the whole video down, which is interesting. All right. So what's going on? We saw a couple things. Let me get rid of this dude. I'm going to move us over to the main screen here. And then let's move this over here. And let's start with this. I'm not going to recap what the recap video is about. That's actually why I'm starting to do that daily stock market recap video, is to give you just like a quick overview so that we can spend a little bit more time diving into random bits of news and stuff. Lauren says the drones flying over New York. Yeah. We should absolutely take a look at that. 100% should take a look at that. Let's see. This is what I wanted to show you from here, though, before we do that. PPI. So PPI came in a little bit hot. I don't think it's a massive deal as what we can tell from the broader market. I don't think that the broad market is losing its mind right now or freaking out. But I do think it's noteworthy because this is kind of important from the perspective of how well inflation is being controlled. And it does start to beg the question if there's a possibility for a little bit of a resurgence, which would be really, really bad. And that can turn into much broader market effects that I think in general we are trying to avoid. So these numbers, keep an eyeball on, which is super important. So that all being said, let's take a look at the drones stuff. So New Jersey. And let's see what we can learn. This. Let's flip through these. Start with this one. New Jersey Senate GOP calls on Murphy to demand more support from Biden in drone takedown. Wednesday, the caucus released a statement regarding the unexplained drone sightings in Jersey, citing their frustrations with the situation and urgency to act. The group said that it is responsible for the federal government, says that there is no threat to public safety while having very little information about the drones. This is contradiction and eroding public trust, only deepens the sense of uncertainty that many of our constituents have expressed, which is completely fair. The fact that if we have drones quite literally floating over our heads, that's kind of topical. And that's something that's pretty important, I think, for us to be able to have a clear understanding of what's going on and why. This is obviously very reminiscent to the balloon thing that we had going on. And especially in a place like New Jersey, there's some pretty rural areas. So I'm surprised that there's not dudes out in fields with like shotguns shooting these things. And yeah, very, very interesting. Briefing was held Wednesday morning by, let's see what they said. Shoot them down already. New Jersey legislators frustrated by state police drone briefing. Actually, what was this? By weeks of investigation, New Jersey authorities still don't know where the mystery drones are coming from, who's operating them, or what they're taking off or landing from. One thing I feel confident about is the briefings that the federal and state governments know very little about the situation. That's hilarious. Every person was varying degrees of irate, angry, horrified, and scared. We know nothing, period. To state that there is no known or credible threat is incredibly misleading, which is very, very fair. We do not know, and they cannot know, because if you don't know the origin of the device, that's really difficult to then cite whether or not there is an actual credible threat or not, right? It just doesn't make sense. The large drones, which are 6 feet in diameter, only fly at night from dusk till 11 p.m. They stay up for 6 to 7 hours at a time, the lawmaker said. Yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't shoot these down. The drones seem to be well above the 400 feet height FAA regulations that allow. Yeah, I don't understand this. Because that also becomes a hazard for fucking like helicopters and lower flying aircraft. These are terrible photos. This is actually shocking to me that the photos could be this terrible. Lauren says they're huge, allegedly. Yeah, it says they're 6 foot. 6 feet in diameter. That's a big ass drone. They don't know what they are. Drones appear to operate in a coordinated manner. Lights are turned off at night. They are difficult to detect by traditional means such as radio frequencies, helicopters. Okay, so that makes sense why the photos would be so terrible. This is dangerous. This is really, really dangerous when we do this game. This is what has led to a lot of erosion of things. Again, I'm not looking to get super far in the weeds on it, because everybody will have to come up with their perception of what's right or wrong. But this is almost guilty until proven innocence, right? Saying something like, you could also just as easily say there is no known guarantee of safety. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous statement. And I don't think that taking this and inverting it is logical. So who is this? Representative Mercer Office Homeland Security Preparedness, but the keyword is unknown. Nitra. Yeah, like this is dangerous. I don't like that kind of language. The drone turns their lights off, which when approached and have gone over restricted airspace. Yeah, I have no idea why they wouldn't just shoot these down. Yeah, this, I just don't get it. Why would you not just shoot them down? How long are we going to wait while unknown actors perform reconnaissance over our critical infrastructure facilities and neighborhoods? If anyone was a legitimate purpose, they would have come forward by now. Yeah, this is really interesting, because to pretend that these drones are getting information that like you really can't get from other sources is a little dramatic. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the drones are flying over to lead them to say this. If they're flying over things like military bases and stuff, sure, I get that, but they would have been shot down a hot minute ago. So that part I'm not positive of. But why wouldn't they? Do you guys know why they wouldn't shoot them down? Mock Chicken says apparently they are drones made by Terradynamics, the XP4. Let's take a look at that. XP4 drone. Literally looks like an osprey. That thing's cool as fuck. Where are these guys? From Colorado Springs in LA. Interesting. So probably unlikely some sort of release, because it could be, you know, a place that's like trying their stuff and whatnot, but I don't see that. I'm going to mute this and then let's see what this is. That is big. That's very cool though. That's very, very cool. Look at that thing. That is very cool. Does it show it landing? Yeah, here we go. This is what I want to see. It keeps their positioned so perfectly, scrubs airspeed. It looks shockingly stable. Dude, that's so cool. That is so cool. It doesn't even kick up that much dust. Very, very cool. Very, very cool drone. Like, I love that. I absolutely love that. Transwing autonomous VTOL system overcomes inherent shortcomings in VTOL designs, combining speed, range, endurance. Yeah, that's so cool. I love this stuff so much. Seeing things that are in the just cutting edge of technology like this is the coolest shit. It can fly for an hour, which is quite impressive. That's probably very optimistic, I would guess. Like if there's wind, load, stuff like that, I'm sure it's quite a bit lighter than that. Joe says 5 minutes ago, shoot it down now. I love this stuff. Yeah, that's it. I think that's probably the way to look at this is like, if it's cool enough, don't shoot it down. It's fun to look at. As long as they're making it switch formats a lot, right? If they're making it go from vertical takeoff, landing, and then straight flying, like if they did that, I would be mesmerized. I'd be like, yo, let's all settle down on the shoot it down thing. Let's just take a beat. Looks really neat. Maybe if it has some lights on it, I mean, if it had lights on it too, like those Chinese drone shows, I mean, I'm locked up. There's no way I could think of hurting it. I mean, it can, this is very cool. This is very cool. 60 nautical mile range, 100 knots at like a sprint, 65 knots at a cruise. This is very, very cool. Public safety. Let's see what, look at. Maybe they're just demonstrating what they think this thing's all about with the very first thing, long range surveillance. Oh, that's so funny. This is so funny. They're probably just like, yo, watch how much surveilling we can do. What does this thing do here? That is very cool. That's also impressive too, landing on a moving platform like that. The other thing, I have to be honest, this is what you want your nerds to look like. That's the exact right kind of guy for this thing. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Mock Chicken says, if they have a larger model in testing, might be a company taking it for a test run. I think they probably would have, I agree with you, but I think that they probably would have come out by now with a statement. Because the other problem is taking it for a test run, and with something that has this much public attention at this point, it's going to cause a lot of problems for the company. So I would be really, really surprised if that were the case. But this, like, I don't understand why they don't just shoot them down, though, genuinely. It just doesn't make sense. Oh, this is what I was trying to get to. Including state police are shackled what they're able to do. Any interception or takedown is under the strict jurisdiction of the federal government. Oh. Interesting. That doesn't make sense. I don't get that at all. If they engaged one of these things and felt that they needed to shoot one down or take it out, they're telling us that they cannot do that. I don't know. I feel like if I was the state police chief or whatever local police chief, I would say I will figure it out at the back end. Like, I'll figure it out later. But I think they would be unbelievably supported by their people in their state by not letting a random thing fucking fly over their heads for days. So I just don't get that. Joe says local governments fly helicopters all the time. No. They're not saying that they can't fly them. What they're saying is that they can't shoot them down, which I don't agree with either, to be clear. I'm just clarifying what they're saying their constraint is. They're saying that their constraint is this, that any interception or takedown is under the strict jurisdiction of the federal government, that part. This is also where you need strong leadership, in my opinion. This is where you need a mayor that says, don't care, I'll deal with it. Shoot the fucking thing down. So it's not like the police chief or whoever would act on this autonomously. The way that you work around that is you talk to the local mayor, governor, whoever, and they would bear the responsibility one way or the other. But I would feel pretty confident in making that decision as long as there's a way to take it down without a problem, because that creates a massive issue. But you don't even have to like shoot it with a gun. We literally have electromagnetic rifles now that can disable these mid-flight. They also have interceptor drones. There's a million things that you can shoot it down with a paintball gun. Like, there's a million things you could do here. I don't think you could pepper spray a drone, but that would be kind of funny. But fascinating. Yeah, very, very interesting. So that's clearly a big piece of news going on right now. Let's see what else is popping up on my general scanner. There's a couple things. Where is this from? No. Don't like that one. What would you guys say is like the most unbiased news source? There's one that I like a lot that's called, I think, Ground Control. Ground News. I like that one because it offers news from both sides. But Biden commute, I don't care about that. San Francisco police identified Luigi Mangione 4 days before the arrest at McDonald's. That's kind of interesting. Went silent for months. Where was he? This I've seen come up a few times now. Lawmaker accuses Pentagon of lying about New Jersey's mysterious drones. Reason magazine? I don't know that one. Let me take a look. I haven't heard of that one. Reason. One of the main reasons why I really don't read news is I prefer news sources that just give the information and then allow me to make a fucking decision on what I think. Yeah, okay. This is interesting. And this absolutely impacts the markets. What is this? I kind of like this so far. Even the... Who does this? Joe, great recommendation. So far, this looks interesting to me. Sort of, actually. I'm realizing that some of the titles are a little more charged as I look at them. Whatever. We'll see what this is. Everyone loves lower taxes, but cutting them without reducing spending is bad news for the national debt. That makes shocker, right? Like basic math applies. I don't think that's necessarily a big piece of news for anybody here. I think we can pretty easily identify that this is a thing. Okay, so this doesn't matter. All right, let's pivot now to some of the stuff for today, because I want to spend time talking about quantum computing, which is something I personally am interested in. And for those that watch the video today, I want to make it abundantly clear that I am not an authority on this at all. I don't know shit about anything, but it looks super cool. And this kind of technology is stuff that I tend to find very intriguing. And that's why I want to talk about it. So that's the game plan here. So let's take a peek at, well, first, let me take a step back. Who here is familiar with quantum computing? It's because we can watch like a basic video on it really fast if we want to together. If most of you are way further along and smarter than I am, you probably don't need to do that. But we can do that if folks would like to get a better feel for it. But Reese says not me, meaning you're not familiar or you're not familiar. Lauren says RGTI. Yeah, that's one of the stocks I talked about on the thing earlier today. We'll take a look at a few of them, actually. There's a few stocks that I think are going to be really well positioned for quantum computing as a general space. So let's first start with good old Wikipedia. Actually, I'll make there we go. It's a little easier on the eyes. It exploits quantum mechanical phenomenon. So these are things like entanglement. It's actually very, very cool what this can look like. Reese says not familiar. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's watch a quick intro video then. Let's see if we can find a decent one. Science, ABC, Quantum Magazine. Trying to find like one that's relatively quick. A beginner's guide. That sounds like what we need. A beginner's guide to quantum computing. All right. I'm going to try to watch some of this. I don't know how mean TED Talks are. If the stream temporarily gets disconnected, I'll just turn it off super fast, and then hopefully they won't nuke the stream, but we'll see how it goes. So let's do it.
Expected. Sounds like a boring game, right? But what if you could play this game on a quantum computer? Now, Las Vegas casinos do not have quantum computers, as far as I know, but IBM has built a working quantum computer. Here it is. But what is a quantum computer? Well, quantum physics describes the behavior of atoms and fundamental particles, like electrons and photons. So a quantum computer operates by controlling the behavior of these particles, but in a way that is completely different from our regular computers. So a quantum computer is not just a more powerful version of our current computers. Just like a light bulb is not a more powerful candle. You cannot build a light bulb by building better and better candles.
That's a great analogy. I'm not even going to lie. I was kind of curious. Like, I've started doing some basic research on quantum computing and getting familiar with the ideas of qubits versus standard bits, which is difficult for me to wrap my head around because I'm just not as smart as a lot of these other people. But I think that's a great comparison. The light bulb to a candle.
A light bulb is a different technology based on deeper scientific understanding. Similarly, a quantum computer is a new kind of device based on the science of quantum physics. And just like a light bulb transforms society, quantum computers have the potential to impact so many aspects of our lives, including our security needs, our healthcare, and even the internet. So companies all around the world are working to build these devices.
Now, one of the things to note, and this is from the video that I did earlier today that is worth mentioning, is we now have these two very different but competing interests with respect to technology. And we have AI that's coming up, and we have quantum computing. And quantum computing is just starting to gain a little bit more of the limelight, especially from the recent news in Google. And Google had been working on this for a long time. Google had been working on the Willow chip for like 12 years. So, damn it, we can't get into that one, sorry. So the technology moves at a different rate. And I think we will see two very different impacts. Stuff like AI has the ability to touch everything and everybody, kind of like a Catholic priest. Joking, not joking. And quantum computing will be a little more relegated to specific users. So if you listen to the examples that she gave, they're actually very specific examples. She was talking about things like healthcare, like those larger institutional use cases will have a different play here than something like AI. So really, really important to pay attention to both these technologies, because the impacts that they have, while different in scope and scale, are massive. And the other thing I'll add on top of that, to be super clear, is the time to find things that interest you in terms of a theme are before widespread adoption. If you wait until widespread adoption, it is way too late to monetize it, at least from the adoption side of things. So if you take a look at something like, let's see if we can grab, just out of curiosity. I don't know how this works. Let's go to a chart. And what I want to do is go back a really long time. Damn. How long has Apple been around? 81? Honestly, didn't realize that it was like early 80s for Apple. That's actually very interesting. So if we look at Apple's movements, I'm just compressing this way down so we can see a lot more. You'll notice that on a relative basis, we don't really see these huge parabolic moves until adoption starts to spread more. So let's take a look at an Apple technology timeline. So Apple II came out in 77, which is still before that it went public. It went public, obviously it shows us in 80. The company went public offering highly successful, making instant millions with several employees. So by the time it went public, it already had some technology that was really, really pivotal. Then let's take a look at 84, when Macintosh was introduced. Notice this. There's just not any sort of big significant move yet. Even as we go through iMac, the thing is there has to be a pretty pivotal technology that starts to lead to movement. So like this, for example, the iMac in 98. We take a look at 98, you can see then the subsequent run up from the technology. So the company had been around for a little while. It already had some initial technology that was partially successful, or really successful realistically, but it still hadn't experienced like this really big parabolic move yet until new technology is introduced that starts to transform the landscape. That transformation aspect is really, really important. So when we're talking about quantum computing, AI, even still AI is early days. The time to start looking for ideas and things that excite you is not after widespread adoption. It's ideally before. Also, I realized I did not mean to open this other thing. Give me a second to close that. I wanted this. So if we think about basic concepts, we have like a technology, we have an idea. Then we have maybe a proof of concept or minimal viable product, one of these kinds of things. Then we have initial release. We have scaling. And then we have optimization. This isn't holistic, but this will apply to most technology releases that we will see and can monetize. This is when you're an angel investor. People that are getting into companies before they go public, or when they're in the process of developing whatever it is that they're going to do, before they have a big revenue stream, before they have a big sales pipeline, all that kind of stuff. This is early stages. Then this can still really apply to all of this from a technical perspective. But when you tend to see companies come on the IPO space, it's somewhere in here. They've already have some sort of revenue. They have a book of business. They're looking to take in more money to really aggressively scale. So within this scaling window, there are some very specific opportunities that are available to you to get into things after they have enough time to work out all these little details, but before they start these meteoric rises. That's the game. And right now, this game is very playable for both AI and quantum computing and technology as it continues to evolve and be released over time. That's just the general flow that we go through, and they provide different opportunities to us. So something to think about as we go through this. So let's see what else she has to say.
And to see what the excitement is all about, let's play our game on a quantum computer. So I can log into IBM's quantum computer from right here, which means I can play the game remotely, and so can you. To make this happen, you may remember getting an email ahead of time from Ted asking you whether you can play 372 games against the quantum computer using your choices. And it's a pretty fast game to play. So I can show you the results right here. Unfortunately, you didn't do very well. The quantum computer won almost every game. It lost a few only because of operational errors in the computer. So how did it achieve this amazing winning streak? It seems like magic or cheating, but actually it's just quantum physics in action. Here's how it works. A regular computer simulates heads or tails of a coin as a bit, a 0 or a 1, or a current flipping on and off inside your computer chip. A quantum computer is completely different. A quantum bit has a more fluid, non-binary identity. It can exist in a superposition or a combination of 0 and 1, with some probability of being 0 and some probability of being 1. In other words, its identity is on a spectrum. For example, it could have a 70% chance of being 0 and a 30% chance of being 1, or 80-20, or 60-40. The possibilities are endless. The key idea here is that we have to give up on precise values of 0 and 1 and allow for some uncertainty. So during the game, the quantum computer creates this fluid combination of heads and tails, 0 and 1, so that no matter what the player does, flip or no flip, the superposition remains intact. It's kind of like stirring a mixture of two fluids. Whether or not you stir, the fluids remain in a mixture. But in its final move, the quantum computer can unmix the 0 and 1, perfectly recovering heads, so that you lose every time. If you think this is all a bit weird, you are absolutely right. Regular coins do not exist in combinations of heads and tails. We do not experience this fluid quantum reality in our everyday lives. So if you are confused by quantum, don't worry, you're getting it. But even though we don't experience quantum strangeness, we can see its very real effects in action. You've seen the data for yourself. The quantum computer won because it harnessed superposition and uncertainty. And these quantum properties are powerful.
So another really, really cool thing about quantum computing is there's a lot of room for growth still. It does have issues with accuracy. And that'll be something I'm sure that the 10-pound brains will be able to pretty seamlessly work through, I have to imagine. But now it begs the natural question of, well, where does it make sense then to find different kinds of companies involved in quantum computing? So there are a few that immediately will jump out at you. Most of the big tech companies are going to be involved in quantum computing. You can be pretty confident in that. Obviously Google, obviously IBM, Obviously, Amazon will get involved in some sort of way, AMD, and there's different ways to get involved in quantum computing. There will be providers of actual quantum computing. Then there will be providers of infrastructure. It'll be providers of hardware in order to power quantum computing and so on and so forth. So let's take a look now. I'm going to just throw it into Google. I'm curious what it comes up with. Actually, let's do it via Perplexity. Let's ask it for create a list of publicly traded stocks that are involved in quantum computing. Let's see what it comes up with. And then this, I think we can close it. Oh, this is interesting. I actually haven't read this yet. While that's coming up with that list, I actually want to see this because this is kind of cool. One of the issues that people have with Bitcoin is latency. Bitcoin is not instant. It's fast, but solving blockchain still takes time, and then to confirm transactions still takes time. It's not instant. So this is actually kind of interesting. Recent announcement by Pichai about the new quantum computing will cost a few ways. Bitcoin investment community. Chum in the water for Bitcoin skeptics. Geiger Capital sent a viral tweet declaring Bitcoin is dead. That's curious. Oh, I understand now. So the reason why it's saying this is because before Bitcoin was really safe and secure, very difficult in order for somebody to have their Bitcoin tampered with in some way. But what they're speculating here is that that's not so much the case anymore. With something like quantum computing, it then becomes much, much easier to answer. Yeah, like this. Cracking Bitcoin's encryption will require millions of error-corrected qubits. Willow only has 105. Additionally, post-quantum algorithms will likely be integrated into Bitcoin's protocol before quantum computers pose a legitimate threat. This is, I love that X does this, by the way. This is like some of the coolest shit ever. And I was just curious, like, what their platform was. Because, yeah, I see their point, but obviously it's an inflammatory statement designed just for like engagement and stuff like that, which is pretty common. Mel sending me a dinner request. Pit Fire Pizza. I ain't heard of no Pit Fire Pizza. What do you guys think about Pit Fire Pizza? Does that sound good? Cactus Shack says, so are the nuclear codes, bank accounts, and everything. Yeah, it's, and this brings another really important element to the forefront, is that it literally would necessitate a massive pivot of security protocols. So good old McAfee that comes automatically installed on everything, whether you want it or not, is going to have a whole new line of business to sneak its way into. So, yeah. Shreji says it's great sourdough base. Wait, sourdough for pizza? I thought it was just fucking pizza. I didn't realize that it's like weird pizza. For the fuck. See, this is one of the things about having a wife is like whatever. Oh, this looks fucking weird now. Now I'm uncomfortable. Okay. So that's the game plan. We're doing weird pizza. Oh, it looks strange. I just like basic pizza. So, fun fact. I'm heading back to New York next week for a bit. And one of the things I am absolutely excited for is the pizza, because they actually have good pizza. Unlike every single piece of pizza I've ever had out here in California, it is straight trash. I like regular ass basic fucking pizza. That Lauren says, I've never met a pizza I don't like. That's unfortunate, because I feel like, Lauren, with your long ass legs, you could have standards with the pizza. And it makes me sad that you would have long legs and no standards. I feel like you should have some fucking standards. And liking any pizza is not that at all. So, also, fun fact, I literally have 0 viewers on Twitch right now, which is kind of hilarious. If I was just on Twitch, I would straight up just be talking to myself. That's kind of entertaining. Oh Lord, this is more than I thought. Oh, this is going to get intense. Okay. Let's buckle up. At its core, quantum computing, revolutionary approach to solving math problems. Unlike classical computers, use bits. Yeah, we already know all that. See, you guys already know all of this. You guys already know that quantum computers use qubits, which are amorphous, gender fluid, ones and zero, non-binary. Sometimes I feel a little one, sometimes I feel a little zero. That's pretty cool. You guys already know way more about this. They use previously designed quantum algorithms like Shor's and Grover's to solve mathematical problems theoretically take classical computers billions of years. There's a catch. Current machines are error prone. This is the thing I was telling you about. Require extreme conditions like near absolute zero temperatures far from scale needed to attack real world cryptographic systems like PKC for Bitcoin. Bitcoin relies on SHA-256 cryptographic algorithm that secures its proof of work mining blockchain modern wallets. This cryptography ensures that Bitcoin is highly resistant to traditional computing attacks from rewriting history or cracking private keys and stealing funds. For instance, brute forcing a Bitcoin private key would take 2,256 operations, a number so large it effectively is impossible. So I understand the risk that it's highlighting here. Has critiqued Google's supremacy claims are exaggerated, noted that similar claims in 2019 involving 50-qubit chip were quickly questioned by IBM and later replicated on controversial computers within a comparable time frame. According to her, while the Willow announcement is scientifically impressive, the consequences for everyday life are zero. I think that I agree with this. It's very early days. That's what I see. So yeah, this is the other thing that I imagine would be the case, that the currency itself would adapt. So interesting. Now let's go back to the meat and potatoes of this though, and let me find the list of companies. This is cool. Whoa. This is very cool. Check this out. This is from Perplexity. So the thing I like about this is that it gives us some context around each one of them and what they are, what they actually do, how they're involved. So let's take a look. Jeff says, check out the companies in quantum. Yeah, let's absolutely do that. My guess is it'll be a mix of these. Remind me about that in a second as we flip through these pretty fast. So Rigetti, which sounds like a pasta, Rigetti Computing is a pioneer in full stack quantum computing, developing superconducting quantum processors and offering quantum cloud services. That's really cool. Company has introduced a multi-chip quantum processor and engaged in various research initiatives to enhance quantum computing applications. I'm actually going to see if Perplexity can one-up us here. For each of these, include if they are a supporter or primary quantum computing company, and include on a scale of 1 to 10 how focused the business is on quantum computing. If this can do this, that would be very cool. I would be quite pleased. And then from a quick general market update perspective, I guess a portfolio update more specifically, I am super boring. I was actually telling my wife I have to like get my copium out. So what's happening is with the travel, after we go to New York, we're going a couple other places on top of that. So because of this, I have to start paring the portfolio down so that it's suitable for travel, which means that I can't put on a bunch of positions like I was the other day. So what I have to do is literally break out my paper trading log for these other style trades, and I have to track them all because there's a lot of things rolling over right now that are actually providing really, really solid fade opportunities, which is pretty cool. So my life is shit because I can't put on a bunch of new trades. It makes me sad. All right, so all of these are primary roles. Okay, so let me add include companies on this list that might not be primary but suppliers of key technology and equipment in order to enable the primary companies. What I'm doing is I'm getting a sense of supply chain and I'm getting a sense of overall involvement. This is because this is a relatively new technology for me. I don't already have a broader perspective laid out in my mind. I have ideas, obviously, but I want to know. Honeywell. Honeywell is not what I would have expected here. Get that. Did you guys know that? Honeywell develops high-performance quantum computers, formed a joint venture with Cambridge Quantum Computing to create advanced quantum software and hardware solutions. That's actually very interesting to me. I would not have expected Honeywell to be involved in this. Is this right? This just looks... fucking is. In March 2020, Honeywell announced that its quantum computer is based on trapped ions. Expected quantum volume is at least 64, which Honeywell CEO called the world's most powerful quantum computer. In 21, announced the spin of quantum division into a separate company named Quantinuum. Okay, so now... hold on, I'm fucking confused. So now is it Quantinuum? Is quantum computing outside of this now? because this makes it look like quantum computing is in its own thing now. All right. And so I have a list of suppliers now as well. Applied Materials, NVIDIA, I have them ranked. Applied Materials, NVIDIA, NXP Semi, and Intel are the top. And then Micron is kind of like middle of the road from a supplier's perspective. I'm still really interested in this Honeywell thing. That's very strange. We can close this. Let's build a watch list, shall we? Okay, so from a primary perspective, we have RGTI, Qubit, QBTS, Ionic, nope, DPTA, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, Honeywell, Form, NVIDIA, Intel, Baba, Baidu, QCOM, MAT, NXPI, AMD, Micron. I think that's all of these. Yeah. Okay. So here's our watch list for quantum and AI stuff. I try to bucket them just so that I can quickly flip through. The other kind of watch lists that I'll maintain is a standard. I actually think I might have deleted the old one. Yeah, so scans is where I'll drop stuff in from other kinds of scans. I'll very frequently split them up. So I'll have a scan for things like VRP. I'll have a scan for upcoming earnings. I'll have a scan for ratio call diagonal, ratio put diagonal, breakouts, like all that kind of stuff. Just a little bit faster to break them out that way. And then for those that don't know, from a useful perspective, is if you add this for Thinkorswim, like any sort of symbol, it'll move it to the front. So it'll automatically pop up here. It's a little easier to find them in case you were wondering. So, and then this is my default, is the smart pack. And that's like smart pack is a military term. So let's go through those companies though. I'm gonna pop this out. I'm just moving it off to the side so that I can flip through them. All right, RGTI. We looked at this one today. Even money, so not really making money. Losing here. Let's see. Let's do this instead. So revenue, interestingly, is contracting. Why would revenue be contracting? And it's also not locked up at all. Look at that. Only 16.4% institutional, only 7% insider. That's very interesting. That's really interesting. Hmm. This is really interesting movement as well. Okay. So there's one. Let's take a look at, go through these in order. Matt, this looks terrible. This one looks really bad. It's setting lower and lower bases. This would actually become a fade opportunity for me. Somewhere around there. This also looks, I'm really surprised that AMD looks as weak as it does. This will also, AMD is one of those companies that is not going to be just solely quantum focused. So stuff like this is going to have other lines of business that are going to be primary drivers, which is really, really important to keep in mind if you're trying to isolate the quantum computing space itself. Baba often has really good VRP. That's like one of my go-tos. Yeah, you can see it still has really good risk premiums. Baidu is cratering. Form factor doesn't look great. Google looks great. It's interesting to see how much Google is moving on that news. Like massively so. No. Intel is still struggling for its life. This one, as you can see, this is one I've already been following for a little while. I had a couple positions on in it that I had gotten stopped out of. So now I'm eyeballing re-entry. Microsoft looks really strong here. Micron is chilling out coming into earnings. Nvidia, I actually don't like this. I have a ratio call diagonal on in here that I really would love to see this running up a little bit more here as compared to what it is, but that is what it is. NXPI looks like trash. Yeah, and it's like breaking through this low end. I don't love that. BTS, another really big pullback. This is another one that I had a position on that I got stopped out in. And this, we look to see if it continues to the downside. I think that's the same. Yeah. Qubit is basing a little bit better, but still rolling over. So this gets an alert up there. And then if it breaks below here, or GTI, same. This looks like the same as QBTS. Yeah, they're like the same chart. This one I hadn't touched. And then ZPTA, penny stock, I don't really touch them. But this is another one for the watch list. So we got a bunch of stuff to keep an eyeball on. Very interesting. We will have to see how they behave. The other thing I wanted to hit is our focus topic for today. and I had managing priorities as a trader. Let me know if that one sounds good to you. Happy to do that. If you'd like to pivot to something else, absolutely can do. Giving you guys a couple seconds, and I'm actually responding to somebody in the Discord. Cool. Let's do it. So I think that this is actually a really fun conversation because when I look at the overall path and what a trader is working on, I think it's really, really simple at its core. But like a lot of things that are simple, it doesn't inherently or even close to make it easy. So first, let's add some more columns. Actually, no, we can delete these columns. I just need a space to draw. You know I got to draw. I'm like a peacock, right? You just got to let me spread my feathers or whatever it is. We obviously need some drawing up in here. So let's start with the problem set. As always, with anything I do, I start with a landscape analysis. So what's our landscape analysis? We have limited resources. Which is time, energy, money. This is actually one that matters here because you can't subscribe to 62 million trading services to try to find all the information you possibly can, right? Like just doesn't work like that. So that's the landscape from a starting point. We have limited resources. We also have a complex system. The stock market has a lot of different layers and levels to it. So limited resource in a complex system. We also have knowledge gap. The reason why I start most of our conversations when we're talking about really anything with starting with a landscape analysis is because this frames literally everything else we do. And we have to align on stuff like this. Jeff says, thanks for the content. Let's figure out how to get ahead of Pelosi. Well, unfortunately, Jeff, I think to quite literally all of our dismay, there's essentially a 0% chance that any of us will outpace Pelosi. She's returned like 800% since like 2014. So she's just a fucking genius, which is unfortunate. Yeah. I hate that. But she's just goated. Like that's all. Yeah, exactly. Cactus Jack has the exact right thing. She's just straight up goat status. Also, Thor is ready to be let out, but first we'll grab the mascot. No, come. He does this saunter. He makes it over. We have the goat right here. He always looks so funny on these videos. It's so funny to me. Look at his little fucking eyeballs. What's up, bro? What you doing? Looks like you're a little hungry, huh? Time for your dinner? Done saying hello to everybody? He can talk a lot. So sometimes we have to like slow him down. You have to scoot him out of the way. Thank you for this. High five. Good boy. Come on, let's go get your dinner. A little bit of dinner time, you know. Yeah, it's kind of funny just watching his fucking eyeballs. They get like super, super. Oh my God. I'm looking at the pizza order and I feel like I have a very normal pizza order. I feel like her pizza order is very not normal. I've never once considered divorce, but it might be on the docket now. Huh. That's a weird ass pizza she got. That makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay. Back to our conversation. Where's my pen? Need my damn pen. Okay. So from your perspective, I would love to hear from Lauren and Lizzie specifically, since they're the ones that had originally asked the question. Is talk to me about what are you struggling with respect to prioritization? As you're inputting that, I'm going to continue explaining this stuff. Oh shit. I need my pen. There's my pen. Great. So for Lizzie and Lauren specifically, talk to me about with prioritization, what issues we have. Now, with this landscape though, the process of where you should spend your time as a trader is very, very simple. It really is very simple. If we think about role of a trader, equals make money. Or reduce risk. Essentially, either of those scenarios. It's why we do this. So this is your job. Now, one of the very first things that we do in the Outlier community that we talk about is define goals. This process is very important. If you do not have defined goals, it will be very difficult for you to figure out the next step, which is where to spend your time. Because goals is going to naturally narrow down a lot of what you're doing and what you're working on. How does this happen? I will explain. First, I forgot I can't like scroll this thing. So we're gonna have to delete this in a second, but let's say our goal is make 10% per year. This goal is going to require a certain set of priorities and structural steps, process to achieve this. That goal is different than make 20% per year, which is going to be different than reduce drawdown to no more than 10%. So when we're thinking about managing your priorities as a trader, your very first priority is to define your fucking goals. That's your first priority. If you do anything else before you define your goals, it is the overwhelming probability that you're spending time on things that might not actually matter. That's your very first step. And as you know, for most of these things, I have a video on creating goals for investing or trading. Here. So that is the first thing we have going on here. I'm going to take a pause on that and see if this makes sense so far. Your very first priority, and I'll write them in as we go. Where's my little notepad? Let me grab this bad Larry. This can go up here. Actually, I just realized I'm literally in an Excel sheet. Just do it here. That's the first priority. Set goals. Next, I guess we can just stay in this. There's a nice little space in it. So we can clear this out. We understand why we have to prioritize. We understand what we're trying to accomplish now because we've set a goal. So let's figure out what goal we've set. We'll do goal 10% per year. That's our goal, just for a starting point. This is obviously for a newer trader. If our goal is 10% per year, our very next priority is to brainstorm, how do we get to 10% per year? That's the next step. So, step 2 is we need to brainstorm the respective paths to our goal. So we can get to 10% per year a lot of different ways. We can turn to prostitution. We can maybe get into different kinds of business deals with the cartels. They're enterprising folks. We could look at robbing people. We can potentially get into the world of tactically acquiring things that may not belong to us and then in turn selling those items. The drawback to all of these is risk of life, limb, freedom, and also being a general piece of shit. So once we realize that we probably don't want to go the piece of shit route, we need to find other ways we turn to trading because we hate ourselves. So then we start looking at the world of trading. Let's brainstorm this together. How can we do this? How can you get to 10% per year? What are the ways that you could conceivably do this? And no, $20 is not $20 behind the Wendy's dumpster. You got to get out of that mindset. I know it's a big departure for some of us, but you got to just let that go. And we got to try to think of slightly bigger and better things if we can orient our mind towards not focusing on the $20 being $20. Because there's also your dignity, which you may or may not have any of that left. I know I don't. So how do we do this? Any ideas? This is the next step. We have to brainstorm, how do we get to 10% per year? This is the very next priority for you as a trader, is to eyeball and think through how this might happen. There's an easy way. Analyze broad market performance. before you even worry about any sort of strategy, before you worry about anything, is let's see if we can hit this goal in a simple way. And if we take a look at the S&P 500 index ETF over longer run periods, it averages greater than 10% per year. So this might put us down a reasonable path to start. So there's an index strategy as a starting point. And for those that are in the mentoring program, we spend time talking about this. I don't think I've ever had a conversation in the mentoring program and not discussed this to some degree. And it's because it is the stepping stone for a lot of other things. Because if, depending on what the objective is, if we find a benchmark solution that we can slowly start to work off of, it's a really solid starting point that's based on research that we can look up. So that's one idea. What other ideas are there? You guys tell me. For me, it's stuff like directional trading, drift, breakouts, speed, momentum, next thing, volatility, structural, event, expansion. So I know the answer for me, but you have to figure out the answer for you. Because the next step, the next priority is once we brainstorm paths to this goal, we start the OSP. Which is here. The next step here is to start tinkering with some strategies. We're not even at the point yet where we're defining what fits with what we're trying to do. We literally are asking ourselves, how can I make 10% per year? What are the conceivable ways that I could do that in the stock market? You can pick stocks that are exhibiting really high momentum. You could pick stocks that you think have really exceptional value, limiting your downside risk. You can do whatever you think of that can make money. But if you struggle with this process, this is what has to happen next. There's no other step to go to if you can't brainstorm different ways to attempt to get to this. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about how much you know about trading. You don't have to worry about if you know about options yet. None of that matters, because this is just a conceptualization. So far, we're starting with, again, something like directional trading. Do I think it's possible to make 10% per year by trading directional effectively? Yes. Is it for me personally? Am I going to be good at that? I'm going to be able to do it? I have no fucking idea yet, but it's a way that you can make money. I know that because I can see it. I can see it on charts. I know stuff about volatility. That's another way, so on and so forth. So this is a conceptualization on what may be suitable. And the reason why that's so important for this step is because, especially as a newer trader, this is going to force you to do some research on ways to make money in the stock market and to learn about different ways of making money in the stock market. One of the things you inevitably will come up to is day trading. Because everybody thinks that this is faster, easier money. This will be one of the things you come up with. Does this mean that it's right for you? I don't know. But can you make 10% per year day trading? Sure. Theoretically, you can. So once we go through and we list all these different things, all these different ways, what I refer to as profit mechanisms, but all in a very high level. As we have this list of different stuff, we then need to begin, not complete, but we need to begin the outlier strategy process. This is where we're defining profit mechanisms. We're defining the type. We're looking at signals. We're looking at behavior. All of this can be done with you knowing nothing about anything else. You don't have to know anything about the individual company. You don't have to know about fundamental analysis. You don't even have to know about technical analysis yet. These concepts that I use for more in-depth things later, they do get more in-depth later. But right now, I am looking at something like momentum. Momentum is a profit mechanism. It's actually a type of profit mechanism. Profit mechanism in this case is direction up or down. Type in this case is momentum. So when I look at the behavior and signals, can I eyeball anything when I look at a chart? You don't have to know anything about technical analysis yet. Can I look at a chart and even see some kind of movement? Yeah, that's a starting point. It's just if you can see it. This is a proof of concept. The reason why I'm framing this as such a broad approach is for somebody that doesn't really know anything yet. This is just understanding what might exist. Most of you will be beyond this step for sure. So from here, we then need to start planning portfolio use. And then we can start narrow down paths from before. And then you can begin the OSP. So here's how this works. We are just throwing darts at a dartboard. We're not limiting ourselves to what we think we might actually do. We're not limiting ourselves to what we might understand. This literally can be something like, I read on Reddit blank. And whatever blank is that prospectively makes money. Like that still belongs here. At this early stage up here, you don't know what you don't know yet. So I would spend zero time axing ideas yet. I would literally list everything out that I think could potentially work for what I'm trying to do based on my goals up here. Then, as I analyze them in a very rudimentary way, these two things essentially happen in conjunction. So let's say one of the things you read on Reddit was from Wall Street Bets, and it's YOLO into 3 DTE MSTR calls. Could this make 10% on your money for the year? Yes. Does this fit in with how you intend to use your portfolio? If you intend to blow up your portfolio and you don't care, sure. Yes. If you don't like that answer, then no, don't do that. So then this can be axed. You have to go through this process. This is how you eventually narrow down things that allow you to move towards your objective, but also fit in line with what you're trying to do with your portfolio. So we start with a really big universe of ideas up here. We start quantifying them very loosely. So for example, the profit mechanism from that prior example would be price direction up. The type would be breakout momentum, whatever you want to classify it as. The signals, you wouldn't really know what they are yet. The behavior is very easy to see on a chart. Monster MS or MicroStrategy goes like this, then this, then this. So you can easily eyeball from looking at a chart if you're trying to trade that directionally what it could look like. You don't have to test strategies. You don't have to do shit. You can just eyeball it at this stage. Then we start narrowing down. I call them paths just because that's what I called them up here. But this is where we start narrowing down the actual strategies that we actually think might work. And then we begin the actual outlier strategy process. While you're doing this, you're going to come up with tons of questions. So we need to track our questions and answer them. The reason why I start this way is because there are so many perspective questions in areas of trading that if you simply just start trying to gap fill knowledge, you're probably going to spend so much time learning all sorts of shit that may or may not be useful. A lot of it won't be useful. This ensures what you're doing is useful because it's either going to correctly confirm that something might fit in what you're trying to do or prove that it might not fit what you're trying to do. The only way for you to find out is to take a look at it. But this is how we get really, really specific and organized with what we're learning and when. And this is all already given to you. What this stuff all means is already given to you in that video that I shared up above about the outlier strategy process. I'm going to talk about how to find profit mechanisms, what they are, how to define the types of profit mechanisms and quantify and qualify what they look like, how to then brainstorm what signals might be appropriate for what you're looking at. Then we can wrap all that up into the total behavior of that profit mechanism that you're trying to capture. And then we can start brainstorming strategies that fit. How can we trade it? That kind of stuff. So this is a way to be very, very, very focused with the effort and the approach. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that. Does that make sense? And then specifically for Lizzie and Lauren, let's see what you guys had from before. I'm going to clear all that stuff out. Lauren says knowledge gap. Okay, so Lauren, expand on the knowledge gap that you feel you're dealing with, because the knowledge gap itself will be persistent. It's not going to be for several years that the knowledge gap, as you might know it as, is going to be filled, because trading takes time. That's just the reality of it. So it's not so much of knowledge gap that's going to be persistent, but being very specific with what elements of the knowledge gap you're referring to. And then Lizzie says time and energy focus. Heavy job duties and other responsibilities limit. Sometimes I have time, but I can't focus, and sometimes motivated, but very little time. I understand. Okay, that's a great point. So this is more of like an internal component that I actually like a lot. So Lizzie, for you, when we think of time, energy, and focus, I actually like that component a lot. From a time element, I think a couple things are really, really important. This is the same thing that we can do for anything we're trying to learn or get better at. This is not specific to trading. This is quite literally universal. What we do is we schedule a minimum amount of time that is consistent. So let's say, for example, I'm going to commit to myself to at least 5 days per week. And if I know that I'm the kind of person that is likely to skip the days, I literally would schedule it in my phone as a calendar event. I would pick, let's say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the minimum amount of time, 15 minutes. The reason why I pick such a trivial minimum amount of time is so that I can maintain consistency no matter what. This is a minimum. This isn't a maximum. It's a minimum amount of time, because from a psychological perspective, here's what happens. If I was supposed to do it Monday for 60 minutes and some shit comes up, and then I move it to Tuesday, but I can't do it for 60 minutes. I can only do it for 30 minutes on Tuesday, and I'm 30 minutes in the hole. And then I was supposed to do it Wednesday for 60 minutes, but then I say, well, let me do it for 90 minutes to get caught up. And in the process of trying to knock out that 90 minutes, something else happens. 30 minutes in, now I'm 60 minutes in the hole. What psychologically starts to happen is you're like, fuck, I am so far behind where I'm supposed to be. And then that's where that sensation of being completely overwhelmed will literally wash over you like a warm blanket of inadequacy. We avoid that. The way that we avoid that is, rather than coming up with these really ambitious goals to start, we pick very simple things. And then one of the most important elements is a clear objective. Very, very clear objective. And this goes back to the process of creating a learning roadmap. And I have different posts about this. I've talked about this a lot. And I actually think, I don't know if I've done a video on it. I've definitely done a newsletter on it. And for something like this, we need to define what we're trying to learn. So going back to that other example we had about brainstorming paths to 10% per year. Well, the very first thing you need to spend time learning about are ways to earn 10% per year. So this is your first objective until it's not time-based. We don't work on this for 15 minutes 4 times. We work on this until we're satisfied with the result. So that means maybe for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 15-minute sessions, you spend these 3 on this. And maybe as you're doing these, rather than it being a 15-minute session, maybe this one's 15, maybe this one's 90 minutes, maybe this one's 60 minutes. So then as you finish your very specific focused session with a clear objective, in this case, we're brainstorming ways to earn 15% per year. Once you complete this, then you can move on to the next thing that you're trying to learn. And it doesn't have to be super, super regimented. In the process of learning ways to earn 10% per year, you might come across an RSI strategy. So then you might say, okay, I want to spend a little time learning about this RSI strategy. Just curious about it. I want to learn. So then this can get slotted in somewhere here or here so that you can learn a little bit about it. But then you always have to ask yourself when you're sitting down for your objective, whatever your objective learning session is, and you have to ask yourself and be able to answer, how does this help me hit my goal? If you can't answer that, then it doesn't get the time. Now, for the other component of feeling like not motivated or whatever that case is, you guys already know my temperament towards that. I don't really care about motivation at all. I care about the process of building consistent habits. So rather than worrying if I'm motivated to do something or not, this literally becomes part of my identity. I am Eric. Part of who I am is I spend at least 15 minutes, 5 days per week on trading. It's not a matter of motivation. It's not a matter of whether we're tired, happy, sad. This is part of my identity. This is who I am. Just like for those that are mothers, husbands, brothers, sisters, whatever else you are, an employee in your job, you will find plenty of instances where you're doing something that you don't really want to do. So all of that being said, this becomes part of your identity. It becomes detached from how motivated you are. Whether you're motivated or not, I can still Google for 15 minutes how to do this, whether I'm motivated or not. And the most important part about it is that it's going to build a habit. And that habit is what is going to serve you in the long run. I cannot overemphasize how important building supporting habits are in longevity for just about anything, especially things that are challenging. Things that are challenging really require you to adopt it as a habit. My involvement with YouTube, I've not seen any significant YouTube success, right? The channel is still sub 30,000 subs. It's really not that successful as far as what people would consider a successful YouTube channel. It's not even close. But it's part of my identity. It's part of my habit. I've created a series of goals for what I do on YouTube. And whether or not I open up a video like paper trading and it has 350 views, even though I think that the content in there is very important for people, I'm not motivated by the views. I'm motivated by delivering against the goals that I've set for myself. And that's what I focus on. It's the same exact thing in trading. Lawrence says, all I do is research the stock market, but not always with the focus. Exactly. And that's the notice why that's here. Because researching without a goal, I call that kind of activity movement for the sake of movement. It doesn't really add up to anything necessarily. It's kind of nebulous and arbitrary. So the fact that you identify that is very, very good. That's important because that is absolutely to your detriment. That's not what you want to do. And it's because you can spend so much time looking at a bunch of random stuff that may or may not help you get closer to where you're trying to be. So that cannot happen. So to summarize your priorities as a trader, your first priority is to establish goals. Without established goals, you are quite literally just you're just completely wasting your time. The second thing is you have to brainstorm ways to get to your goals. This is a high-level overview of what you think might work based on what you've read, based on what you searched, based on what you find in Google. After that, you have to think about how you want to use your portfolio. That simply means, how comfortable are you having all of your money used at once. Does that make you comfortable, uncomfortable? How comfortable are you with opening up a portfolio and seeing that you have an individual position that's down, let's say $300? Does that $300 bother you or not bother you? Those artifacts build how you deploy your portfolio in the beginning. The way that you expand the use of your portfolio and progressively take on more risk and increase size and things like that is entirely done through, for me at least, exposure therapy. There's no way to jump from being nervous about losing $50 to putting on a trade that might be down $5,000 and feeling nothing, or a trade that might be down $50,000 and not caring. That comes through exposure that's built up over time. Can't fast forward that process. So once we get through our brainstorming phase, we have an idea of how we want to use our portfolio. Then we can start taking a look at what we came up in the brainstorming phase and actually running it through the outlier strategy process and see how it performs and see what you think. While you're going through those steps, you're naturally going to come up with questions. We log all of our questions so that in the middle of another thought process or another focus, we can continue our progress without getting derailed by asking this question, then asking this question, then asking this question, then asking this question. You can see that happens on the YouTube live streams, and that's intentional. That's me allowing myself to go down a rabbit hole to a specific extent, but it can't go on into perpetuity, especially for somebody with my kind of curiosity, because I can go on down those chains for a really long time that then ultimately withdraws my overall objective of learning whatever I'm trying to learn. So that can't happen. In order to build consistency, we set our goals low enough. And you're always taught to set really high goals. You should set these really aggressive aspirational goals. That is the case for some things. But conversely, for some things, you're better off aiming lower. And this is part of something that I've learned from the book called Atomic Habits. It's something that I've done most of my life innately without really understanding what I was doing or why I was doing it. But that book has clarified it for me why what I do tends to work in that way. And if you set your goals low enough, then there becomes no excuse for not completing the task. And then you build a habit that builds over time and compounds. And that is the entire process. That's exactly how you should prioritize your time as a trader. You should be very, very focused. Reese says, I never feel like I'm doing enough. Not sure how that's everyone feels. I'm working like hell. Yeah. That's part of being dissatisfied with where you currently are. And that is okay, because that discomfort is what drives action. And for me, that action even turns into mania sometimes. And I think it's good. It's the only way I think that somebody is able to build the skill set that you need to build fast enough in order to make an early enough impact on your life that it's meaningful. So I think that discomfort is really, really, really important. Really important. So I think it's a good thing. Cactus Jax says, you put out content that others wish they could do. I appreciate the educational lessons and mentoring. As a market participant, I've never stopped seeking the way others think. I own that book too. Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate that, because that's the way that I've built the channel. That's the way that I've built my brand and who I am and what I choose to spend my time on. And it comes all the way back to the goal setting thing. I thought to myself when I first started YouTube, none of this. I started it literally just to help some of my military friends during COVID. Then as I saw that the YouTube start progressively growing, then I sat down and I said, what are my objectives with this? What am I trying to do? And I resolved at that point that the goal of me continuing on YouTube past that point was essentially the same goal that started me with the YouTube in the first place, which was making information that I thought was useful for my friends And it just turns out that I have more friends than I thought, meaning people online that I've not actually met before, but have similar things that they're interested in trying to grow, people that I genuinely identify with. So even though it moved from being just my military friends to a broader group of people, my goal remained the same. So through that definition process, it's why I'm able to so clearly maintain my focus on my values and what I think is important. And what I think is important is putting out a video that talks about paper trading. And I know when I put that video out, it's going to be a terribly performing video. By knowingly putting out a video that I know is not going to perform well, that actually hurts the growth of the channel, because then the YouTube algorithm starts to say, okay, well, this guy's putting out stuff that's not really that impactful for people. So we have to be careful what we show in the future. So from a growth perspective, I'm actively and knowingly shooting myself in the foot, and I don't care. And it's because I'm delivering against my goal, what I care about, what I value. All of that directly applies to what you're doing in trading. If you take the time to define your goals very clearly, quantify them, the rest of what you do naturally starts to fall into place, that a logical place that might make sense against what you're actually trying to accomplish. That takes time to develop. Your goals will evolve as you move along. But nonetheless, by defining the goals, you're giving yourself an actual target to shoot at. Without that, you're just kind of flopping around, wandering aimlessly, which is not very efficacious in my opinion. That's my TED Talk for today. LOL. As always, engorged Worcestershire sauce. Great name. As always, thank you for the $1.99. I look forward to that $1.99 because for those that don't know, even with the ads that run on the live streams, they make like no money. Like the time that I actually make a joke about it because it's funny. It's like worse than prostitution because the live streams are anywhere from 60 minutes to 2 hours. And the ad revenue that comes in from that is almost always less than $5. It's literally normally around like $2 or $3, which is just comical to me. But so I always look forward to the $1.99 because it's like it essentially doubles the ad revenue for the entire video. I think I'm very thankful for that. And then I get to joke with myself that I work in a job that pays me like $4 for 2 hours. That's beautiful. How much cone bone the GME? Yeah, let's take a look at what we got in GME. There was a couple interesting trades today from the option side of things. 35 looks unlikely, at least in the near term. We can take a look at the probabilities. $35. So within the next 20 days, it's less than a 50% chance. But in the next 90 days, like a 66% chance. So pretty decent in a longer term time frame. Shorter term time frame, a little bit less. Just keeping it a buck. More importantly than that, I actually think this looks pretty good though. The reason why I think this looks good is it's basing at a slightly elevated level, high 20s, which is fantastic. Post earnings, everything. So I think it's pretty good. I heard call volume was delicioso. It's not crazy, but it's also not dead, which is good because GameStop had been pretty quiet for a little while. We could take a quick peek. So you can see that the 20s were getting hit up. This was a while ago. Hold on. And then let's kill this off to just calls. So the main stuff I was seeing is near-term movements at the 30s. There was stuff I saw at the 20s as well. It's a lot of sales, it looks like. But the sizes overall are really small in terms of premium. The only thing that really stuck out to me was a lot of the really near-term. Let me get rid of this stuff. A lot of the really near-term exposure, but these were the belle of the ball. So there was a tranche of 17 April 25s at the 35s. It was spot at 540. So it's a little closer to the bid side, but we don't know if it's bought or sold. And that was a $1.8 million trade. But most of the call transactions that we saw today were from the bid side, but there were some larger on the buy side. But this is really what stuck out today. But we don't really know what this one is, unfortunately. That's how she goes. Sweet. All right, gang, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to work on a video. Absolutely awesome hanging out with everybody. And then if you know anybody that's on Twitch that streams or anything, let me know, because I'm slowly trying to get Twitch built up a little bit. It's honestly partially just for redundancy from YouTube. After I saw what happened with that one live stream that got copyright and then taken down, it was kind of a bummer. So I realized that I need to have some stuff other places. Let me know if you need anything. Be an outlier. I'll see y'all later.